Hi, welcome to ThinkTech. We are raising public awareness on technology, energy, globalism, and diversity. This show is Center Stage. I'm your host, Donna Blanchard, very proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater. We're coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhua Theater. Today, my guest is Dominic D'Andrea. He is the creator, founder, artistic director of 1 Minute Play Festival, which is something kind of cool we're going to dissect today. It's coming to Honolulu at the end of May. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest via Skype. Dominic, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Where are you actually right now? You're in the Eastern time zone is all I know.
I'm in New York City.
Oh, you were in you're right there in the Big Apple. Okay. Where you are now 6 hours away from us. Sorry about that. But it's going to be a nice treat for you when you do get to come here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's start off by doing this. Can you sum up what a 1 Minute Play Festival is in a few sentences or paragraphs?
Sure. The 1 Minute Play Festival, so we're a theater company. We're based in New York, and we work in a series of 24 national partnerships. So what we do is we engage writers who are living and working in different communities, and we invite them into our playmaking process, which is about building up, not about cramming a bunch of stuff in. It's about seeding and building up. And when the writers submit these moments, what we're actually looking for is emerging themes, ideas, trends, and styles, commonalities in the zeitgeist. And what we do is we try to highlight and encapsulate those things and show what those commonalities are and those connections are and kind of clump them up and reflect them back. So really what we're performing is kind of like using the image of a core sample, like sticking something in the earth and looking at these 50 to 70 pulses of storytelling. Or the other image we use sometimes is kind of like a mind map, like a community mind map that we're performing. Mm-hmm. So these moments might say something about who we are, where we are, and where we might be going. These like 70 pulses of storytelling, these little heartbeats. So through that, it's sort of a way to investigate who we are, where we are, and where we might be going as a community or as a city or the population, whoever we're engaged with. So it's sort of this interesting tool, along with being a theatrical experience.
Wow. So let me make sure I'm getting this right. That is a prompt that you're using with the directors. You don't want just whatever is top of mind in their creative brain. You would like something, you're looking for relevance in our world and communities?
Yeah, and that's actually geared towards the writers, not the directors.
The writer. Did I say director? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. No, but the directors are part of that too. But no, it's actually the writers. So the prompt that we give them, it's different in every city. We up the challenge in different years, and it changes based on what community or city that we're in. But really, it's a lot about trying to get at what's at the here and now. So we never tell them what to write about. So it's not a prompt and it's not a theme challenge. So we don't give a theme. We don't say write about this. We're actually just saying consider the world around you, consider your communities and all the ways in which you view the world, and try to write and offer moments that are only happening at this place and at this time. So in doing so and in prompting the writers to think and act and respond locally into the moment, to this moment in time and this moment in the world, we have sort of increased our chances of looking at what these connections are in the zeitgeist and what all these 7 or 8 or 9 themes that emerge. But there's always, like, in every city we go to, like 10 plays about one thing and 10 plays about another thing, and so on and so on. So it's interesting to see how many really specific broad stroke connections exist. And what's really amazing about it is every city that we go to, even year to year, it changes. So 2 cities almost never look the same. What themes we're talking about in Honolulu are not at all what we're talking about in New York or Atlanta or Philadelphia or San Francisco or anything like that. So that's what's really cool about it.
And, oh gosh, I'm just filled with questions now. Okay, so maybe it'd be better if we start at the beginning.
Sure.
How many, are you looking for a select number of playwrights that you're working with in a given town?
Yeah, it depends. It's sort of organic, so there's not like always a target number. I'd say we try to, at the low end, aim for about 30 playwrights, and we can have as many as 70 or 80 playwrights in Chicago and in San Francisco. We have almost 80 writers every year. And in New York, we have 4 festivals, so we have almost 300 writers just in New York. annually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So here, how many are you looking for?
Well, we'll see. Like, it's a new festival, so part of the first year festival, we think about coming to a city or a community for the first time is kind of planting a seed of a relationship that we'll build over several years. So we'll see. I imagine we'll have around 30 writers because that's sort of the framework I like to work in.
Okay.
But we'll see what we get and who wants to play and what that looks like. So
Okay.
that part of the excitement about this is I don't know anything.
That is
It's always
exciting.
we like to start is assume nothing and the whole sort of framework of this type of work that we do is about discovering what's there. So we try not to prescribe. We provide a framework and a way in which we work, but always the artist and the community informs the conversation of what the work is about.
Okay. So do you mind stepping us through the process that you go through? You get let's say, your 30 playwrights in a room. How much of their time up front are you asking them to commit?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if there's in a room necessarily. Well, we come to consensus, so we're partnering with you guys. We're partnering with the Honolulu Theater for Youth, and so we ask for consensus via email. So you guys give us a list of writers that you like, and the rubric for that is kind of like who are the writers that are living and working in your city, who are the people that you feel are the most important writers we should hear from, the most important voices, the voices that are most representative, and then think about diversity. What types of people live in your city? How do we get at a true representative cross-section of who those people are and what that looks like, and try to get a little bit of everybody. So really it depends on how many people, what the conversation is like, what the theaters are that we partner with, what they do, and a lot of that, who the artists that we previously know. We know a couple of playwrights in Hawaii already, who they recommend. So we try to get consensus from our partners and from the community before we set out. Then we invite the writers into a planning process via email. It's mostly online. 90% of it's online. We send them a writer's packet, which is sort of a way to introduce people to our methodology and what we're looking for from the work itself. There's some specific things we ask for, like some framework things and some parameters. There's also some questions that we pose, some prompts and some different things to think about before we ask writers to set out to write. And really we're saying, pick a word, an image, an idea, and try to build it up. So it's not about cramming a bunch of stuff in and try to hit a stopwatch and sourcing through. We're actually trying to inspire these moments that, say something about the world that's much larger than their tiny frame. So when they really make impact, they say something about the wider world that you can imagine or sort of get from just this little cross-section, this little moment. And when all these things play together, we see what we really have.
Wow.
But after the writers write, they submit to us online. We review the work. We see what connections exist. We try to clump those up into groups of 7 to 10 plays, and we assign it to a director. And then director puts a team of actors together, probably 5 to 10 actors, depending on how many plays there are and how many roles there are. And really, they're forming a little company, and their goal is to make each play a minute long. We're very strict about the time frame, actually, because it's an aesthetic thing. Make each play clear, like try to get the most out of it, trying to find the floors and find the ceiling and really unpack them as much as possible.
In 60 seconds?
Right, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
just had to stop you
when
there.
you're seeing 80 minutes of work, the experience of it's actually quite epic. So instead of thinking about it as like a bunch of little plays, we tend to start to think of it as one community action, one work, like a quilt or a patchwork. You know what I mean? So by the time that you're experiencing all this moment, you're seeing a cumulative thing that's just moment after moment after moment after moment after moment. And then by the end, like what you sort of experience, what you glean, or kind of what bubbles up to the surface for you might not at all be what the person next to you sees or experiences. So it's kind of like throwing a bunch of stuff against a blank wall and seeing what sticks. And yeah, so in our festivals, there's typically 30 to 70 actors performing 50 to 90 plays.
Wow.
Yeah, so sometimes it's, writers are usually playwrights, but sometimes our actors are community members. They're not always professional actors, or sometimes we've had mayors of towns, we've had councilmen, we've had people that work in different fields, like if we're supporting hunger initiatives or working with food banks, like some of the workers from the food industry come in serve as actors sometimes along with their professional actors. So sometimes it's a real mix. And that's a cool way to sort of engage the community where they are.
Awesome, yes. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Okay, so you're working with one director for the entire piece?
No, we usually work with 7 to 10 directors. So imagine it's like a one-act festival, right? Let's just logistically.
Okay.
So let's say I'm directing and you're directing. I would give you 7 to 10 plays, and I would direct 7 to 10 plays, and you would pick 5 to 10 actors, and I would take 5 to 10 actors, and you make each play a minute long. You choose your order, and you make each play clear, and then you come in and you perform your plays, and I perform my plays, and so really by the end of it, there's 70, 80 plays performed by 7 or 8 different teams.
Okay. But it's you and your team that's primarily looking for the through line by which you're tying all of these together, however loosely.
Yeah, because the writers submit the work to us, and we really are looking at what's there. So we spend a lot of time with the plays, and we see what's there. We ask for revisions, a lot, especially first year. There's a lot of, first year there's people that don't quite get it, or they're not quite there, or whatever. So we give them a lot of coaching and feedback, and we give them the opportunity to submit and resubmit, and we try to really set everybody up for success. We set the writers up for success, and we want to put plays in front of the directors that they can reasonably accomplish in a minute or less, and that the actors can really engage in. That's not too much or overwhelming. That's just simple. That offers enough to kind of hang an idea on, and that they can kind of unpack and stamp on too. So we try to set everybody up for success in that way, and then the rehearsal process, everybody's allowed to play. The writers are invited into the process. The directors are there to engage with the writers and the actors. So hopefully, if everybody plays nicely, there's a kind of very synergistic exchange of ideas.
Oh, wow. And yeah, that's where I was going to go next. Do you have the writers, are they invited into that piece of the process also? And
I mean, how we view in our mind, it's everybody's process. So it's not just a director-driven thing or an actor-driven thing. It's a community action. So everybody that contributes has a stake in it.
And so when you have, does 1 Minute Playwright Play Festival have some sort of guidelines for how that unfolds once you've got actors, directors, and playwrights in the room together, or do you just let them go?
Say more about guidelines. What do you mean exactly?
Who has the final say in the room?
Who has the final say in the room? I think it's collaborative, so I don't really, the goals have the final say in the room. Make each play a minute long and make them individual. So we actually perform them when there's a lights down between like a blink out, just a dim light between every minute, so we respect each play as an individual complete thought. So directors are not invited to like conflate them into some sort of Frankenstein one-actor movement. They're really like a minute, then the next minute, then the next minute, then the next minute. Because the aesthetic of the work is like 80 pulses of storytelling. And they're totally simply with 4 chairs, lights up, lights down, and a bunch of actors. So it's about an exchange of ideas, and it's about people and stories and ideas, not about stuff and things and stages. So it's really keeping the focus on what the bigger picture is. Okay. So I think if we offer that as the guiding principle, then everybody sort of gets behind that, then we're able to really see what's there.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, all right, Dominic, we're going to take our first break. Thank you for breaking that all down so in such detail. I really appreciate it. As someone as the managing director of Kumukukui Theater who's participating, I appreciate that being broken down like that. Okay, we are going to zoom out for a break for just a moment. Please stay put. We'll be right back with Dominic D'Andrea of 1 Minute Play Festival.
Here's the deal. I'm Jay Fidel. I'm the host of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, which is the Energy Policy Forum's program on Wednesday. That's how we call Wednesday Energy Wednesday. We call it Energy Wednesday every Wednesday. Are you surprised? Okay, and we try to get guys like Jim Alberts here from Hawaiian Electric who can tell us what's really going on in energy. We want to be informed. It's so important. It's the most important initiative in our state. Clean energy is major, okay? And that's why we cover it on this show. That's the deal. What do you think, Sharon?
I think that's great. That's why we're here every Wednesday from 4 to 5, and we hope you all join us so we can hear people like Jim coming on our show and co-host Ray Starling from Hawaii Energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here today. You've seen this. You heard what she said. What do you think?
I think it's a tremendous opportunity for people to come together and talk about the issues. Oftentimes, there isn't a good forum to bring these key issues out into the public, and this is a tremendous way to go about it. And the activity of this show is essential to keep talking about energy because, as you said, it's such an essential part of our lives that we need to pay attention to it and we need to think about the future.
Okay, Ray, your turn.
Well, this is a special time in the history of Hawaii where we're making some pretty radical changes in the way we use energy and generate energy. And this show is the one place you can count on coming to every Wednesday and hearing something about the latest issues that are on the table, being discussed, that will affect us all going forward. So come join us, and if you have some ideas you want to share with us about energy, give us a call and let us know. We'll put you up here and let you talk for an hour. So come see us.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Jim. It's great to be, from ThinkTech's point of view, it's great to have this show. We love the show. It's our most important show. So come around and listen to us 4 to 5 on Wednesday. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, we are back. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series. I'm Donna Blanchard, host of Center Stage and very proud managing director of Kumukuhui Theater. I want to let you know that at ThinkTech, we stream our shows live every weekday from noon to 5 on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And if you would like to, you can also go to our website, thinktechhawaii.com, to check us out and get on the live stream there. Or you can go there to find our archives. You can also find them all on YouTube. We're talking with Dominic D'Andrea of 1 Minute Play Festival. He's Skyping in with us from New York, and we've just talked about how the festival actually, the process of the nuts and bolts of the festival itself. And then we get to, the goal of all of this is that we get to a couple of performances here in Honolulu where the public can come in and see what has happened. Have you ever had occasion to want or need or feel the or to have any sort of exchange with the audience after the play?
That's a really interesting question, and the answer is yes. Part of what we do in almost every city we go to, in addition to the festival, because we do have a sort of an applied theater methodology associated with the work that we do. I do lead these community dialogue and consensus building sessions that happen before or after the festival. Which is everybody's invited, the artists, all playwrights, directors, actors, community members, members from the theater companies that we're working with, and anybody from the public who has a stake in that conversation. And they get to come in and we spend 4 or 5 hours digging into these questions. Who are we? What is our relationship to each other, our community, and our work? And they're action sessions. So it's not just sitting around talking. It's a lot of, we're on our feet and we do some small group stuff, some consensus building work. We start to get into these questions really specifically about what do we have in our city? What assets do we have? What challenges do we face? What is everything we know about being an artist in Honolulu? Where do we receive these messages? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the people that hold the power? Who are the people that have the most voice? Who are the people that need to be heard? And then all of this leading towards a discussion about what do we have here and what does it take as artists and as citizens to create the world in our image as we believe it to be. What actions can we take and what steps can we sort of do together as a community to kind of lead towards just sort of making the world a better place for us and for those around us. And then we also sometimes look at the work too and just sort of say, like, really gently, not really like a feedback thing, but what did you see, what did you hear, what did you learn? What connections or ideas did you see in the festival? What did we say? What connections exist? What contradictions exist? What didn't we say? Sometimes what we don't bring up says just as much about who we are as what we did. So we try to break into that a little bit just to really make sure that we're honoring the work and what's being said and everything around it. And all that is the goal. The community, the performance, the dialogue sessions, everything that we do has the goal of sort of just from a creative placemaking standpoint, just to make sure that we are keeping people and participants and human beings in the experience that we have of living in our cities and living in our communities as the primary focus of the work. So in that way, we're kind of this weird amalgamation of part of a theater festival and part of a social action. And if we do a good job, then year after year we return, and it sort of becomes like this kind of ritual of checking in with our community, with one another, and with our audiences, frankly.
Dang, that's no small feat you got there.
It's, it's simple action, so it's big ideas, but, we accomplish those step by step. So
yes.
really
Okay, so now let's go back. Now that you've said all of that, Dominic, I want to go back to hear a little bit more about you and how you've developed this desire to do this, and then the wherewithal to make it happen. So, were you a theater goer as a child? Did your family take you to the theater?
No.
Okay, so
my family, I come from an immigrant family. My parents are Italian. And as far as I can tell, we don't have any artists in our background. So I'm a first-generation American and also a first-generation artist.
And what was the first memory you have of going to a theater?
I don't really have a first memory of going to the theater in that way. I think I participated in theater before I actually started seeing it. And I got to theater through music. I studied music as a child and ended up getting into an opera company, and opera led to musical theater, and that led to theater, and that led to me studying theater. So it was a very organic kind of progression. There wasn't like, sometimes you hear an artist say, I was 7 years old and my mom took me to see this thing and I had this aha moment, and I do not have a story like that. Mine was very organic and very gradual over a long period of time. Wow. So I think, to me, if I had to credit anything with my desire to make theater and to participate as an audience, as a spectator, as an artist, it's stemming from music, really.
And where did you grew up in New York?
I actually grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, which is a couple hours south of here.
Okay.
Yeah, but my parents were divorced, so my father was always in New York, my mother was in Baltimore, so it was always kind of a hybrid New Yorker, Marylander.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you study music in college, or are we talking about?
This was when I was a kid, and I went to study at Peabody, and I studied privately, and I studied in school, and then eventually started doing a lot of theater, and started really doing community theater. So I guess one of my earliest theater experiences are going to see community theater and working in community theater specifically, which for me was a really wonderful tool to sort of get the introduction and the appreciation and the passion to get to know the bodies of work inside out. And to be honest, I was performing, and I was a really good singer, but I was a terrible actor. That was really bad. So through that, I actually started directing. And
oh, well, yeah, you're a bad actor, so might as well be.
I started directing, but I was a really, really good director. And, when I was in college, I was the first director, I think, that the Kennedy Center ACTF sent to the Kennedy Center, which was cool because I got to spend this whole year doing residency at the Kennedy Center, but I was also from the area, so it's kind of like serendipitous that I was able to do that. And that sort of launched me really from an early age, like 18 years old, like a freshman in college when I got that. And I was up against grad students and people who were in their 30s or doing MFAs, and I was like an 18-year-old kid, and I got this thing. And started my career really young, just working in D.C. and went to university in D.C. and started my career there, and kind of gradually came to New York. I guess in 2001 I met Edward Albee, and then ended up coming to New York and working for him for a time. So kind of very, very natural segue.
Yeah, you can't just brush by, and then I met Edward Albee, and then I did this.
Yeah, this is kind of how it went. I had a lot of luck and a lot of exposure to people from a very early age, and then that was sort of my intro to the theater. It was kind of interesting. And then, since that time, I haven't had, I've been on my own since. I haven't been like doing much in the way of working in institutions in the last couple of years, just partnering with them, and the 1 Minute Play Festival sort of taken over my life.
Wow.
It's interesting to me. So.
So wait a minute. Can we go back just a little bit? When you were working in community theater, you said something about how nice it was to work with the people who have that kind of passion for the work. Did you recognize it at a young age that was special? That was different than working in professional theater?
I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know. I think the transitional moment for me was people that when I was singing a lot in choruses or in the opera company, people had an extreme passion for music. I was always really drawn to the idea of singing chorally and singing with performing with people in the group setting. And when I got into the theater, I thought it was an interesting kind of transition because there's acting involved, there's other elements involved that you didn't get just from the singing or from the opera. And so it became a challenge to really kind of go there and challenge myself to become a better actor and to kind of engage in the theater in this way. And so the best part of that was just getting to perform so many different music. Like I think I did like 40 musicals or something, just always like as a chorus kid or small roles or things that eventually I got better. But the thing is, as I got better, I also got into directing, so that took me in a whole different direction.
Yeah.
Once I started directing, it was like an aha moment. As soon as I started doing that work, it really became clear that this was something I was really good at and probably what I was meant to do. So I always do identify as a director first, primarily, actually. And it's interesting how much that has informed the 1 minute play work that we do, and how much that I would really at a certain point in my life actually like to go back and be a director more than I am now, because 1 minute play festival has just become so much of a beast. We have 24 national partnerships, so I spend most of my time essentially just producing this festival day in and day out. So we leave a lot of time to other things.
Yeah. I understand that. I'm an actor and a director who manages a theater, so I hear you. So when you were directing, then when you started, I'm assuming that you were directing Albee and Shepard, and you were directing scripted pieces?
Yeah, I was directing stuff and then I got into play development. I worked with Playwrights primarily. So part of the thing with being a really young director was getting to work with a lot of playwrights, and then coming to New York and working with Albee, and I worked as a director and a dramaturg at the Lark Play Development Center for the last 10 years. This is season 11 for me there. And I work with new dramatists, and I work with NYU, and I work with the kids at Juilliard sometimes, and I work with playwrights and play-specific theaters all over the place. So working with playwrights is kind of like the crux of what I do and who I am as a person in the theater, as an artist, and as a administrator, and as a dramaturg, and as a director. And so kind of everything we do stems from the idea of keeping playwrights in the focus of the work.
Okay.
So it's like, a lot of new play work, a lot of play readings, a lot of workshops. And I used to, for a while I was a very busy director in New York doing a lot of productions, but since the festival kind of blew up, it's just been a lot of focusing on the festival.
Okay, let's take another break here. I think this is a good organic spot to slow down a little bit, and then we'll get into the development of the festival.
Great.
Yeah? Okay, cool. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series. I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm talking with Dominic D'Andrea of the 1 Minute Play Festival, and we will be right back.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, and on my show I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space, and so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Aloha, Yappers. This is your host, King Zilli, for the Yap Show. Every Friday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch us here live, ThinkTech Hawaii, and then later on we upload to our YouTube channel. We talk about youth issues, policies, youth programs, and how to transition yourself into adulthood.
But this was like a sign, I guess. Hey, Mike's like, hey, right. Now's your chance to go back to school, which I'm doing.
Catch us here again live, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Hi, we are back. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhua Theater, where I am the managing director. We're talking with Dominic D'Andrea of 1 Minute Play Festival, and at the end of May, he is going to be here working on a 1 Minute Play Festival here in Honolulu. You're going to get to come and see, and it's going to be a collaborative effort with his team and Honolulu Theater for Youth and Kumukuhua Theater, as luck would have it. So we're back, Dominic. Oops, I just talked to you like we've been old friends for years.
Hey, you go for it. I respond to
Awesome. Okay, so we've been backtracking a little bit through your life. Where's the inception of the 1 Minute Play Festival?
Okay, so it's the 2005-2006 season, and we basically started the festival as kind of a fun community challenge for our friends and artists here in New York. So at that time there was this huge push of 10-minute play festivals and all these other kinds of works and young artists getting involved in stuff all the time. And a couple of friends and I were just talking about what would it mean to engage every playwright, how to make a project where we just engage every writer that we know. And then we started talking about just the nature of theater in general, whether it's a full length or a 10-minute or a 1-act or these time value centric plays. And we're saying, people saying things like, oh, I wish that we go into the theater and we're looking for some magic, but really we're only really keen into one thing that happens, one moment or one idea. So you're watching, you're surfing through all this work and you're waiting for the one thing to hit you that really means something. And even in a full-length play, that could be true. I had this kind of brainstorm moment, this kind of light bulb went off, and I was like, aha, so what if we just try to make a festival that's about the one thing that happens? And that was the idea. It was kind of about, in those early days, distilling, which as we've gone through the festival over the years has become the complete opposite of it. We didn't know what we had back then, so we said, what if we make this project where we just invited all of our playwrights to try to think of a play and just try to distill it down to the one thing that happens in a play and see what happens. So at that point, all of our friends who are now all famous playwrights, basically, at that point we're just kind of young or mid-career playwrights kicking around New York. I'm talking about Christopher Diaz and Rashid Joseph and Jason Grote and Mike Daisy and Bathsheba Duran and Young Jean Lee and folks like that who are in those mid to early aughts were just, coming out of grad school and just kind of getting things going and are now all writing for television or have Tonys or Pulitzers or whatever. And we invited them all into our process and we just said, hey, submit these moments to us, we'll see what happens. And they gave us all these moments. And I took a bunch of our director friends at our little tiny theater in Brooklyn and we put it together to see what we had. And we had no idea what we were doing, but we were going to give it a shot. And we had so many people sign up to come and play with us, it was kind of unbelievable. In fact, we had so many actors that we had to keep half of them across the street at this bar. And then at intermission, we had to trade all the bodies out in the space. We were
oh, that's dangerous, though.
No idea, yeah. So, that first year, some of the plays, we had no idea what to ask for, how to do it there. We had all this stuff. We had tables and chairs and blocks, and some of the plays were 3 and 4 minutes. Even though we were trying to get into it just didn't really, some of it was brilliant and some of it was crap. But really, it was fun. And the value of it was that everybody came in the space together and everyone played and engaged and trying to make the most of this weird challenge. And we knew that there was an excitement factor and we had something. So right away, it was very evident that it wanted to become an annual thing in New York. Now the kicker is, before we started the 1 Minute Play Festival, 1 Minute Plays as a concept didn't really exist. You can find some evidence of them. I found out years later, like in the 70s, there was this guy who was trying to say that 1 Minute Plays were like some kind of superior art form, that we could say something in the space that was like magic or some kind of weird thing, and he was largely dismissed by the playwriting community. But I had no idea at that time. There was no evidence of it. It was before, I mean, Google and stuff was there, but it was still early enough where we couldn't really find information so available. So we didn't know. So we actually had to develop the criteria for our festival based on what we learned ourselves. So every year we would do this festival, and every year we'd get a little bit better at developing that worked, that didn't. We should really look at that. And it took us 4 years in New York, and we just became a bigger and bigger and bigger festival before we had our next sort of aha moment. And that was this. After our 4th year, there was a producer from a very large LORT theater that took an interest in the work because we were getting such a buzz every year from the theater community. He came and saw the work, and he said, you know, what you should really do here is go on tour. You should make this a tour model as a company. You should pick like 50 of your best plays and get like 8 equity actors, and like we'll help you create a LORT experiment ETC contract, and you just tour around to different theaters and take this work. Like this would be a great little thing to tour around. And I thought, as a young man, I was like, yeah, that's a great, this is like 8 years, how many years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. You know, I thought that would be a great thing to do. So we started putting all this work together and all this effort into kind of creating this tour model. And I realized like the money situation was hard. Like, how do we pay all these people, and how do we distribute all this money? And then just the idea of really what it came down to is I had this kind of epiphany that when we sort of switch models from a community-based model, what makes the work special is that it's for, about, and by our community. And that our community is involved in the work, and the community comes to support it. And when we switch to a sort of a commercial model, we lose the kind of basic, fundamental value of what makes it exciting. So I said, you know, as much as I hate to do this, I actually canceled. I just scrapped it. I said, this is not actually what's actually conducive for our work. And I decided that if I'm actually going to go around and do this in other cities, I'm going to have to make it just like I do here in New York, which is not with a lot of resources, but for, with, and about our communities. And as soon as I made a commitment to saying, actually keeping our values and keeping what's the excitement factor in the focus of the work, then I started getting invited by my other friends in other cities to come and make it. So my producer friend Jill McLean, who was our administrator for the Lincoln Center Directors Lab, had moved on to her different job in San Francisco. And she said, hey, since you're going to do that, do you want to come to San Francisco and make it here with our community? And I said, sure. And then my friend Will Rogers, who was a producer at Victory Gardens Theater in Chicago, asked me the same thing. He said, you know, this would be great here in Chicago. You should come to Chicago and make it. So I said, okay. So this first year, like 6 friends in different cities started asking me to come. And what was amazing about that is I never had any aspirations whatsoever, and I mean 0, to do anything other than have an annual event in New York. I was a director all year, and then I had this 1 month a year we dedicated to making this festival, and that was it. And then we grew from 1 city to 6 cities out of just being invited, and from 6 to 10, and here we are now, 5 years later on the road. We have 24 national partnerships, 6 pending international partnerships, and we've engaged over 1,000 playwrights. We've produced over 4,000 one-minute plays that we've commissioned. We've had thousands and thousands of actors and hundreds of directors. And TCG told me last year when they were writing an article for us for American Theater that we're probably the largest and longest consistently running theater festival in the United States, which is hilarious because we don't have any resources, and almost, you know, more than about half the money that we make from every festival actually goes to charity. The other half sort of covers the costs and the expenses of doing it. So we have no money, we have no resources, and here we are like with this massive project that's self-perpetuating.
Yeah, and you know, it's no coincidence. The work is really, really important. That's why everyone wants to be a part of it, and that's why people don't, you know, they're not looking for scale to come in and do the work, because it's the reason why I'm at Kumukuhua Theater, because it's by, about, and for the community, and that's so important. It's so enriching for all of us to be a part of as artists and as community members. So I'm really sorry that we have to wrap up the show now, but I'm very, very grateful that you're going to be coming out here to Honolulu soon, and we're going to get to be a part of this.
I'm so excited to come. It's been a lifelong dream for me to come, and I'm more excited because it's always exciting to start in a place where you know nothing about, like a total blank slate in terms of expectation and who you might have. And it's going to be really special to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be able to learn about the community really the same way I did, from the theater, from inside the theatrical process. And that's really a magical way to learn about a community, I think.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope, yeah, I think so too. And my hope is that for this festival, we can bring together our local playwrights as well as visitors. And we have a lot of part-time residents, students, and military people here as well. And this is a really excellent way to bring people together and learn about what's going on here. So thank you very much, Dominic. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to meeting you sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy your travels until then. Say hello to Chicago for me when you're there. and yeah, Cincinnati and all that. And I would like to thank you for being here, for joining us on Center Stage today. And there's a few more people I would like to thank. I would like to thank our studio engineer, Zuri Bender, who is in my ear, Sachi Slomoff, our house manager, who's over there. Hello, thank you. And Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. Come back and join us next Wednesday at 2 o'clock on Center Stage. We'll see you then. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this is your ThinkTech News for Wednesday, March 11th, 2015. Thomas Jackson, the police chief of Ferguson, Missouri, is said to be resigning his post, according to a city official today. It was in Ferguson that an unarmed black teenager, Michael Brown, was fatally shot last August by Officer Darren Wilson. This resignation comes after a Justice Department report which cited racial jokes and revenue goals met by ticketing black motorists and pedestrians among the daily status quo in Ferguson. Just as Iraqi government troops and their Shiite militia allies appear to be close to recapturing the city of Tikrit and scoring a strategically and emotionally significant victory, militant fighters of the Islamic State mounted one of their fiercest assaults in months today, setting off 21 car bombs in the city of Ramadai. Security forces fought Islamic State holdings in 2 remaining neighborhoods on the west side of Tikrit, the birthplace of Saddam Hussein, where militants massacred more than 1,000 Shiite Iraqi soldiers last year. The city has been a focus of week-long assault by Iraqi forces, the largest operation against the Islamic State, also known as ISIS or ISIL, since it took control of much of the country last year. To the west, in Ramadai, the capital of Anbar province, the militants gave a show of force even as they lost ground in Tikrit. Hikmat Suleiman, the political advisor to the governor of Anbar, said that because of the fortified defenses, growing battle experience, and improved intelligence, the Iraqi forces in Ramadai were able to keep casualties in the car bombings to a minimum by attacking and thwarting the vehicles as they approached, blowing up most of them before they reached their apparent targets. A senior military official at the Anbar Province Operations Command said 5 people were killed in the bombings and scores were wounded. An exclusive from Reuters today says that the United States has asked Vietnam to stop letting Russia use a former U.S. base to refuel nuclear-capable bombers engaged in shows of strength over the Asia-Pacific region. This request seems to expose strains in Washington's steadily warming relations with Hanoi. The request, described to Reuters by a State Department official, comes as U.S. officials say Russian bombers have stepped up flights in a region already rife with tensions between China, U.S. ally Japan, and Southeast Asian nations. General Vincent Brooks, commander of the U.S. Army in the Pacific, told Reuters the planes had conducted provocative flights, including around the U.S. Pacific Ocean territory of Guam, home to a major American airbase. It is the first time that U.S. officials had confirmed the role of Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam, a natural deepwater harbor in Russian bombing plane activity that has increased globally. Brooks said that the planes that circled Guam were refueled by Russian tankers flying from the strategic bay, which was transformed by the Americans during the Vietnam War into a massive air and naval base. Vietnam's willingness to allow Russia to use Cam Ranh Bay reflects Hanoi's complex position in a geopolitical tug-of-war that frequently pits China and Russia on one side and the United States, Japan, and much of Southeast Asia on the other. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this has been your ThinkTech News for Wednesday, March 11th, 2015. Ahui ho.